Hello and welcome to Blood and Ashes, your brand new favorite Wheel of Time spoilercast. I am joined as always by my good friends Villy.
Hello.
And Jody.
Hello, may the light shine upon you.
Thanks, Joseph.
Welcome.
Welcome back, gentlemen. Oh, wow. How exciting to record something that we haven't recorded twice before.
Yeah,
Yay.
absolutely.
Okay, a little bit of housekeeping right up front. We have to give the obligatory spoiler warning. We're going to be spoiling all of the Wheel of Time all the time. We are going to be using profanity. I mean, that is something we are just not going to get around. And we also want to urge listeners to reach out and contact us with any kind of questions or comments or corrections you might have. Anything at all that you'd like to say to us. And you can do that via the Blood and Ashes podcast website, which is just bloodandashespodcast.com. There's a contact us section where you can fill in any kind of comments or questions, and that'll be routed to myself. And hopefully we can address those. We are not precious about our content. We know that we're going to make lots of mistakes. We deliberate and pontificate and even differ in opinion between each other from time to time. So please feel free to send in your thoughts. Long-time listeners will notice a change in the episode descriptions. We have now included the name of the book in the episode description. Somehow we neglected to do that before, and our good friend Rowan pointed out that it would be good to know in the future which book we're referring to when we are covering a set of chapters. In today's episode, we'll cover chapters 6 through 11. So let's get started. Villy, Jody, was there anything you guys wanted to say or comments on from last episode?
No, not at all. Just, also shout out to our long-term listeners there, Mo. About one episode.
Yes, soon there will be hordes of them.
Yes.
Some would say fists full.
Nerds.
Okay, so I think, Joe, you're the
Yeah.
first cab off the rank. Why don't you get us started with the Westward? When we left off the last episode, Rand had just, collected some supplies from home after the Trollocs had attacked, and he was sitting in the forest with his dad, who looked in dire straits. So,
Yes.
Chapter 6, the Westward.
Yeah. So, as Mo said, we've just left off in the previous chapter. They just outside the farm in the woods there, and Rand is making a little litter for his dad because his dad is gravely injured. And anyway, so in this chapter is where he starts transporting Tam back to Emond's Field to go and find help. They're going through the woods, trying to avoid the road because he knows there's going to be Trollocs on it and all other things. So he's stumbling through the woods. It's a really, really hard journey for him. And this is where also Tam starts having these fever dreams where he starts giving more information to us about where he's a bit about his past and also Rand's origins and things like that. He starts muttering things like they came over the dragon wall like a flood and talking a little bit about Laman Sin, the king of Kerheim. And then I did a bit of research into that because I couldn't remember why this idiot would cut down that tree. It's the only tree of its kind in the world. Now I'll cut it down.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of looking in the big white book again. So yeah, he cut it down so that he could make a throne that could never be replicated. So huge douche move.
Total douche move.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, he did it. The Aiel find out about it, and they come over the wall to come in and kill him. And that's the whole Aiel war that got set up. And eventually they do kill him, as we all know. So anyway, just talking, and he starts muttering other things like how many nations burn, because everybody at that time thought the Aiel were just savages, and still to this day, people think that they're just a bunch of savages, especially the people from Emond's Field. They know nothing.
Fools.
So yeah, they the Aiel come in and they sweep. I mean, I was looking at the map as well, and there's a lot of destruction. They were from Tar Valon. They were having the Battle of the Shining Walls, so that's as far north as they went, and they were down as far south as Tyr. So right along the coast as well, on the southern coast. So from the Dragon Wall, from the spine of the world, all the way west up into there. If you look at the map, it's a massive, massive area. And also, like reading up about it, there's at one point there's probably around 80 to 100,000 Aiel on our side of the wall. It's my land too. Yeah. So yeah, they got all the way. I mean, they eventually turned back because they achieved their goal, unlike what other people believe is just, they got turned back by the forces, of this side of the world. Yeah, but that wasn't the case. They just accomplished what they wanted to do, and they were back on their way. So yeah, and then as well, that's where we learn that Tam says, they fought all the way to the Shining Walls, all the way to Dragonmount, and reveals that he heard a baby crying and on the snow, and that the Aiel women fight beside their men, and this woman obviously was pregnant, had the baby, and then died. And Rand is like, no, he's my dad. These are just fever dreams. This can't be true. So he does actually see on his way there, while he's having, tromping through the woods, see a fade and the Trollocs, and this fade as well stops right in front of him and looks into the woods in his direction and doesn't see him. I suppose that's a little bit of Taviran working.
Must be.
Yeah, must be.
Lan even says later that the eyelets can see like eagles in day and night. So, I mean, Rand got real lucky not to get spotted there.
Yeah, a little bit of plot armor, perhaps. I don't know, but yeah, could be. So he thinks, he even thinks of one of the lines that stuck out to me. Where he's looking at all these Trollocs, and his dad's telling all these stories about the Aiel and Aes Sedai and these battles and everything, and he's like, wow, all these stories. And one of the lines is, next he might just meet a green man or an Ogie or even a black veiled Aiel. And I'm just thinking, oh, Rand, you will meet the green man in this very book.
I made the same note. Like, yeah, he's listing all the things he's definitely going to see.
Yeah, Ogie, I think that's the next book, if I'm not mistaken. And Aiel, dude, you are Aiel. Man, so much to learn.
I have in capital letters in my notes, I have, he does.
He does indeed. Oh, man. So yeah, all the way back, in this chapter at least, just Tam continuing muttering about the snow and the slope of the mountain and the blood in the snow and all that battle and everything. So we learned, like, all right, so that's where he got that sword from. He was actually out there fighting. He left the battle to go up onto the mountain because he couldn't take it anymore. He was smelling the blood and hearing the screams, and he couldn't take the stench of death anymore, and he was actually fleeing. And he ran up the mountain, and that's when he found Rand. So that was a little bit of interesting tidbit that I didn't remember from reading it last time. And basically, that's how the chapter ends. That was a quick recap, but there's not much more to it. Just a bunch of fever dreams and Rand, walking through the woods in the dark.
Yeah. Did anything stand out to you, Villy, like compared to the last time you read it?
I just think it more is tying back into the fever dreams and the history. Like, it's and it has a profound effect on Rand. I mean, to think about that, like, my dad's not my dad, and well, as you all well know, I'm an adopted kid, so I can relate to that quite significantly. So that has stood out for me quite a bit.
Yeah, I got the sense that as soon as Rand heard Tam say that, he knew it was true, and he spends all his time from that moment forward trying to convince himself that it's not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge giveaway.
Every time he mentions that he is, he's definitely his dad, you definitely get the sense that he's telling himself that. He's trying to convince himself of that. You also learn that his mom's been dead for 15 years, or Tam's wife, Carrie, has been dead for 15 years. So if Rand is, hovering around that 18 years age, then he was 3 when she died, so he was real little. So he's got very little memories of her.
Yeah, his memories are mostly confined to she had a gentle touch and maybe her smell or something. I can't remember from that.
Yeah.
But, like, he doesn't remember his mother, so he must have been very young.
Yeah. I also like that when Tam's talking about they came over the wall and blah, blah, it sounds like you've just experienced Trollocs at the farm, and you think at the first time you read it, like maybe he's talking about some kind of Trolloc war or something. You know nothing about the Aiel and how, like you said, Jody, the only reason they turned back is because they accomplished what they set out to do. It wasn't because of any kind of defeat.
Yeah.
Can't wait to read and discuss the Aiel.
Oh, we're gonna get there.
Yeah, the one I read about that as well is that the coalition that they made to fight the Aiel was about 10 nations plus the Aes Sedai, and they had around 160,000 men versus the 80,000 of the Aiel, and the Aiel were not even bothered. Like, all right,
wow,
we killed this dick. Let's go.
Yeah, it's amazing. I goddamn love them. Anything else? I mean, there's a couple of these chapters in this section that we're covering today that are pretty straightforward. A lot of flavor, a lot of setup, a lot of history, filling in a couple of blanks, but nothing meaty to sink your teeth into. So, Villy, why don't you just take us straight into chapter 7, Out of the Woods?
Out of the woods, or should we say not out of the woods yet?
Out of the frying pan.
Yeah, so Rand realizes, sort of to his to surprise, that it's daybreak, and a thick fog, sort of grey daybreak is how they describe it in the book. And he starts smelling the fires in Emond's field, and sort of getting excited, drawing near, getting concerned that he might run into a Trolloc there. And the closer he gets, he realizes that obviously the smoke is way too much. There shouldn't be as many fires going at the moment. And as soon as he can see the village, he sort of sees the first farmhouse that's burnt down with only the chimney sticking out like a finger, a charcoal burned finger. And he meets up with Master Luan there. He then immediately assumes that the Trollocs also attacked them. And to Rand's surprise, he then kind of takes it, okay, well, Trollocs, you know what a Trolloc is. He's sort of like, okay, well, if my dad Tam knows what a Trolloc is, then sure, Master Loan must know what a Trolloc is as well. And to surprise, he says, but like this is like all the stories. The stories are real. It's like how much of this is actually real. And the chapter touches on that, the stories, quite a few times as they go through it. Moving on a little bit further, he sees Egwene. She's so happy to see him, obviously. He can clearly notice, her dress was done up, buttons amiss and misaligned. Her face is dirty, hair is tatty, but her hands are clean. Very clean.
I noticed
hands.
that as well.
And then he was questioning Master Loan what happened, told him the forge was attacked first, and Elspeth cracked Trolloc's skull with a frying pan. She sounds pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
And they all obviously see Tam in the state that he is and says, no, don't worry, we'll get the wisdom. Let's get Nynaeve so she can have a look at him. They move along, get her called up closer to have a look, and she runs up. Similarly to Egwene, dirty dress, tired looking, dark eyes, clean hands, very clean hands. And she gives Tam a quick look, lifts his eyelid with a finger, and looks at the wound, and immediately just says, sorry, there's nothing I can do. There's people that I can help. And Rand sort of, in anger, sort of shouts out at her, but he's dying. And no, she draws a very firm, stern line. Like, I can't. There's nothing I can do.
She has to make a tough call.
Yeah, very tough call. But I can do something for other people. Well, Rand has a choice right there. Like he doesn't accept it and decides, well, I'll go find Bran. He's going to help me with this. I'm going to take him to the inn. Surprisingly, the inn is untouched, apart from obviously the mark of the dragon scraped onto the wall, onto the door of the inn. As he draws closer to the inn, you find a lot of people saying, hey, Rand, can we help? And he kind of mutters under his breath and carries on. No, he's all right. But the only person that sort of sees him and jumps to action again thereafter is Tom. Good old Tom was sitting outside the inn there.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah.
And he just grabs the back of the litter, picks it up, and walks him straight into the inn and sort of opens the door. And Bran is sitting behind a desk in his night clothes, same as Master Luan was in his night clothes. He doesn't even have shoes on, dirty feet, doesn't even look up, busy obviously writing the record of events into a book, I would assume, or even letters to be sent out to the other villagers. And he's just writing, looking down, saying, yeah, you know what, just get on with it. I don't have time for this. And he then realizes it's Rand and Tam and sort of jumps up, chair goes flying. No, we'll get him sorted out, get him straight into room 4 of the inn, lays him down in a nice soft bed. Rand is actually quite surprised at how well kitted the inn's rooms are. And by the description, it really sounds every room has got their own fireplace and a soft duck down a mattress there.
They say the rooms are well appointed. But whenever I read that sentence, I think of real estate ads online when looking for apartments to rent. And I'm like, well appointed, my ass. Yeah, sure. It's got 4 walls. That's what you mean.
So then Bran sends Tom to go and get Nynaeve. And before Rand could even interject, Tom flies out and tries and gets her. He heads back in and says, well, no, look, she's apparently spoken to you. There's nothing to be done.
Why did you send me there? Like,
why did
she bit my head off?
We can all imagine. And Rand is like, he doesn't know what to do. I mean, he's tugging at all ends and saying, like, what can we do? And that's where he finds out that, and this is where the story of the Aes Sedai then comes in. Like, okay, Moraine is actually Aes Sedai. And it's like, okay, so just like the stories again, now we have Trollocs and we have an Aes Sedai and a warder. And Bran sort of fills the gaps in terms of her coming out of the inn and sending lightning bolts scattering across Emond's field, taking out the Trollocs, and Lan doing what Lan does, flying around his body as a weapon and a sword.
Yeah. There was a line there in that text as well, like he was in 10 different places at one time. Like, that's how fast he is. And I just imagine that scene of him flowing through the forms, like leaf on the wind and all of that, just slicing down.
Trollocs just dropping around him like leaves.
Oh, man. All right, sorry. Continue, Billy.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with the interruptions whatsoever. It's all good conversation. But yeah, he's and they like, look, this is not a decision to be taken lightly. Like, the minute you involve an Aes Sedai, you're involved, and they will want something, and you will not know what it is. So it's a decision that you get to make. And Rand is kind of like, whatever it is, where is she? Where can I find her? And I think it was Tom or Brand that pointed him to saying, no, they at the bridges. So he immediately hops up and makes his way down the stairs. And by now already he's gotten accustomed to the sword that he've already forgotten that he was carrying, like grabbing the hilt, getting it out between his legs so he can't trip over the scabbard, and gets down and runs immediately to them.
Clatters down the stairs.
Clatters down. And he then sees Lan sort of crouching over another Trolloc that's slain. And as he's moving, they've got Master Lowen's Durrance dragging corpses to the big fires. And he realizes they're just burning corpses and corpses of Trollocs.
Yeah.
And the smell of it then
Vile
sets
business.
in. And I think they make note to a spit that was left for hours too long. And the men who was burning them had dipped their face masks or their rags in vinegar, just as some form of comfort.
That reminded me, Billy, of that story you told us about how you changed babies' nappies. Putting the wet wipes behind your ears across your face like a mask. Dip it in vinegar, Billy. Dip it in vinegar.
Next time, no, the new wet wipes of today are all scented. It's fantastic. We digress, dads.
Okay. This will happen.
And yeah, he sees Lan, and Lan sort of picks off what else? Just a medallion off one of the Trollocs and uses the word Cabal. And I had to obviously go look up on fandom and see there was 11 different types of Trollocs. And that just being one type, so or more loosely described as Cobalt. But yes. And then what is the bands? They say 7 bands. Is it referring in this chapter to the quantity of Trollocs or the different variety that attacked?
For every guitarist, bassist, and drummer Trolloc, it is a band.
What?
Yes. Don't edit out that pause.
No, I won't. It's beautiful.
Yes.
No, it's like a military unit is what I expected. Bands and fists.
Because a fist is 100.
Yes.
So what would a band be? 10
or 20?
20?
I don't know.
Well, Jody?
I don't know. We're going to have to ask. Please explain this in the comments section on our new website, bloodandasherpodcast.com. We'll be happy to hear. How much is a band? How much is a fist? Well, we know that last one.
Well, we know fist is 100, so I'm gonna go and expect that we might see it to be 10. So 70 Trollocs attacked the village.
Yeah, no, they weren't messing around.
Yeah,
no, there was quite a few.
Yeah. Anyway, so back to Lan, busy picking up the medallion or token of the Trollocs corpse, and Moraine's sitting and not so dignified, and kind of now Rand knowing she's an Aes Sedai, she's sitting in the dirt, looking tired. Her staff is across her legs, but when she looks up, sort of he sees, that's like deep, deep in thought. And as he approaches her, she sort of greets him, but the first thing she says, "How are your dreams?"
Yeah.
And that sort of throws him. Sort of, my dreams, like asking me about my dreams. Look at my village.
Yeah.
Type of thing. But he sort of puts her into the picture, like, look, and again the stories come in. Like in the stories it says Aes Sedai can heal. You're an Aes Sedai, and he addresses her as Moraine Sedai. So she then says yes, and he said, "I'll pay any price if you can help him." And she gets up saying, "We'll talk about the price later. Let's get there." So they all rush on, and he's kind of like, hurry along, and Lan has to rein him in. And she reins Lan in for that, saying, "You know what? You would feel the same if I was in the situation," which was quite nice. And then she moves along and takes him up into the inn. And that's where we leave that chapter.
Yeah.
Right.
I noticed in this chapter that I did not remember Lan being as harsh as he is to the kids in the beginning. Like he's brutally harsh. Because I mean, throughout the series, obviously he plays a mentoring role to Rand and even the other boys, and you sort of come to think of him, like we said last time, he becomes sort of like a father figure. But in the beginning, he is almost outright disdainful of the boys and their ignorance.
Right. It's a drunk uncle figure at this point. Yeah.
Or that douchebag, self-righteous uncle.
I think that's the same guy. But just at one point, I don't know if it's this chapter or the next, he's like, I don't think you're worth it, sheepherder, no matter what she says. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think we should be here at all.
Yeah. He's here under duress.
Yeah.
Anything stand out to you, Joe?
Yeah, I got
a couple of questions.
I got a couple of notes. Yeah,
excellent.
Like everyone in town, like we said, like as Lan was dancing the forms and whatnot. Everyone in town is just blown away by this Aes Sedai and this water, except for Tom, because obviously Tom knows something we don't. Tom also disappeared during the battle. Lan mentions that. He says, like, "Hey, I didn't see you at all during the battle." And then Bran actually stands up for him and says, "Look at his singed coat." So nobody saw him during this battle, but he was out there kicking ass and getting burnt. He's So Peyton Fairness also disappear. They also think that the Trollocs ate him, if only. But no.
God.
I have to deal with this guy for God knows how many more books.
At least his transportation got burned to the ground with all his possessions. That left me feeling incredibly good.
Silver lining, yeah, for sure. And then I know the rest of my notes were exactly what we talked about. Like Lan doesn't think much of Rand, and like about the 7 clans and stuff. In the comments, how much is a band? All right.
Yeah.
Mo, and you?
They make a lot of effort to sort of bring home the fact that those Two Rivers folk and the Emond's Fielders are very practical and stubborn. Like they don't even let an attack and an apparent defeat. They're too stubborn to admit defeat. They're like, all right, well, now we have to start rebuilding, and everyone's ready to rebuild. And Master Lewin is like, yep, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And he even says something along the lines of, the light will take care of us all, and if it doesn't, we'll take care of ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like we are too stubborn to succumb to the dark. I also wondered about Peyton Fane. Was he abducted, or did he just leave with them? Because he is a dark friend. And for the Trollocs and the Fade to know which houses to target, someone must have fed them some kind of information. Now, Peyton Fane's been coming to that village for years, as long as the boys can remember. He's been a dark friend for who knows how long. I suspect that he was actually giving them information.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how the Trollocs knew which houses are the ones that they should be attacking.
Well, yeah, that dragon's tooth that was drawn on the door is obviously him. I think he went around and marked all the houses that needed to be attacked. And the inn was the only one that didn't burn down. We didn't know about the other marks on the doors because those houses burned down.
That's interesting because they thought it was going to be the Coplins and the
Yeah, no, that's
I
what
mean,
I thought as well.
The
but
usual
I mean,
suspects.
there's the usual suspects, but the only reason I thought that is because they rolled in with a wagon to expect a fat party in the morning to arrive to a burnt down village and kind of complained about it, like, what's going on here? Why is there no Beltane
Yeah.
festival?
Where's my party?
Jeez, yeah, just like a glut of douchebags in the beginning of this book, eh? Like there's a lot of tools around as well.
Yeah.
I didn't make that connection at all, Joe. I didn't think that the dragon's fang on the door was the houses that they should attack. I thought that was, like Willie said, the Coplans and the Congers directly blaming Lan and Moiraine for being at the inn and wanting to chase them out, and that's why they drew the dragon's fang
I
on
would
the door.
second that because he wouldn't have had the opportunity to go out to Tam's farm and draw a sign on the door there.
The attacks were also very targeted, and only the houses with the boys in them. And Bran Alvear doesn't have a son. That's why the inn was untouched. Why a lot of the houses were untouched, because they were going straight to the houses where boys of that age were in.
All right. That could, yeah, that makes sense. I just figured that they, because of that targeted attack, that they knew exactly which houses. And how did they know which
No,
houses?
they
must have been
knew
marked.
exactly, but that's a good question. Like, how did they know?
I'm pretty sure that Paden Fane had been feeding them information for a while.
That bastard.
Yeah, what a douche.
Don't get me started.
I also really enjoyed how, as soon as it became obvious that the only help for Tam would be coming from Moiraine, Tom doesn't say, go call the Aes Sedai and get her to heal Tam. He immediately brings up the Dragon's Fang and sort of prompts Bran to talk about the fact that they are in the inn and what they did, and then it comes out that they're Aes Sedai. And Rand's like, what? Aes Sedai? And Tom he guided that conversation just a little bit without making it known that he knows who she is and what she can do. Like he just sprinkled a couple of seeds there, and Bran went with it, and Rand took it and then went along with it. And then obviously Tom gives him the warning, like there's always a price.
Yeah. Also could be he doesn't want to get involved. He doesn't want to be the one that got Rand involved with an Ice Side and then he ended up getting killed.
He doesn't want to get tangled in their webs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yes. I think Bran says something like, when Rand is incredulous about her being an Aes Sedai, Bran is like, what, did you expect them to wear a sign? And they literally do. They wear a great serpent ring. You know, he's just also ignorant.
Oh, what we did forget in that chapter is like Bella keeps always getting good mentions. And even
left out
down to
Bella.
putting, we can't leave out Bella. She ran into the village at an hour after they were attacked. And at that point, they feared for the worst for Tam and for Rand because she came in alone. Obviously, none would have set out because he walked into the village at absolute daybreak. So everyone was still sort of gathering themselves and picking in the ashes and pulling pots and pans out. And it's kind of like, well, there was no Aes Sedai there to protect the two of those, and probably the worst.
Yeah.
So it plays into Egwene being so happy to see Rand, where, I mean, the saying, she cannoned into Rand to comfort him when Nynaeve said, like, look, there's nothing she could do. So there's obviously a really deep connection already established through their childhood between the two of them.
Look, it's not too late to change the name of the podcast to incorporate Bella somehow, because she seems to be a favorite amongst the contributors to this podcast anyway.
Now we have to buy another domain name. God damn it.
It's all about Bella.
Email your corrections to bella@bloodandashes.com.
Oh, she's our new admin. That's it. Sorted.
Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, chapter 8, A Place of Safety. So Moiraine arrives at Tam's room, and Tom immediately stops talking when she arrives. Obviously, you can tell that he's just doesn't want to be involved at all. Takes out his unlit pipe, puts it between his teeth, takes it out again, mumbles something, and makes some excuse to leave. Rand asks if he can stay. So when Moiraine says, "Look, everyone get out of here so I can do what I need to do," Rand is just unwilling to go anywhere. So he just wants to stay with his dad. So he sits in the corner with Lan while Moiraine starts doing her thing. And that's when Lan asks Rand about his sword. And he just comments on the fact that, there are places in the world where that heron mark shows the presence of a true blade master. And Rand explains about his dad buying it some years ago, and he said, it's a weird thing for a sheep herder to buy, and I think they even say that there's an unspoken question about, like, are you sure that you know why Tam really had this sword? It seems like an odd story, an odd thing for a sheep farmer to do. And as we obviously know, there was a reason he had it, because he is extremely proficient with it.
Very proficient.
So Rand asks Lan, if I told you about the Fade beforehand, would it have made a difference? And Lan immediately is annoyed. He's like, yes, any information obviously would have helped. And Moiraine's like, relax, there's nothing we could have done. She's sort of busy healing Tam, and then speaks to them sort of over her shoulder while she's busy doing it. And then she explains about Tam's wound, about how the blades made on the slopes of Shire Ghul at the forge of Takandar are like, some of them are cursed with like weird oddities where they cause strange diseases and fevers and things by, purely coming into contact with an enemy. And I think at the end of the series, Villy, you might not even have read this, but when you actually see Takandar, I think you see that forge, and this could be headcanon. This could be my brain filling stuff in, because it has been a while now, but I'm pretty sure you read about them, they actually see it, and there's some kind of, they allude to the fact that innocent people that are kidnapped from the borderlands are taken there, and the murder of those people is part of the forging of the weapons. Like they are imbued with some kind of evil energy because someone is killed at the time of them being. It is grim. It is grim stuff. So just like reading about, like, that's what got onto Tam. It's quite alarming, and you can tell why Nynaeve wouldn't have been able to do anything. So Moraine has to use her Ungriel to actually remove the taint from that weapon from Tam, and she does do that. And then she tells Rand that he and Matt and Perrin are special. They talk a bit about that very specific age of the boys that have been targeted. Rand, Matt, and Perrin are within a couple of weeks of each other, and some Ban and Lem, the other kids that are like 10 months older or younger, their houses were fine. They were not even they weren't even touched. So it is a very, very, very specific aged boy that they are looking for. So Moraine has narrowed it down to the three of them. And basically says they gotta go. They gotta leave.
Sorry to interject there. Ban and Lem both also saw the Fade.
Yes, a lot of boys saw the Fade.
No, there was just the 5 boys. Rand, Perrin, Matt, Ban and Lem. And all 5 of them told their parents that they saw a Dark Rider because of the fear. But was that not maybe the Fade sort of saying, okay, now we know there's these boys, that Baden Fane gave them the information of the boys that's of that age in that village. And the Fade made himself visible to them specifically to have a look into them to see, okay, which ones are they?
Probably. Yeah, like they started with a wider sort of net and then narrowed it down. I mean, there were quite a few houses. I think they say half of the houses in the town were burnt down or attacked at some point. So maybe they were still kind of chancing. I think the fact you read about later as well, that Winter Night actually confused them because no one was in their own house. So they might have gone in with a plan, as much of a plan as a Trolloc can have, and then had to regroup. So Moraine tells Rand that, he and Matt and Perrin are very special, and that the Trollocs are going to keep coming after them, and that the only place that they can, she doesn't say anything about why she thinks that they are special or anything like that. She just says that the only place you're going to be able to go to actually get answers about why these guys are after you is going to be Tar Valon. And then, after they take their leave, Rand basically just falls asleep in the chair next to his dad's bed.
Indeed.
So, yeah, anything stand out to you guys there?
Not really. You pretty much covered it all. There was one line where Rand mentions when he's talking to Lan about the attack on the farm. He says, "Yeah," and then this Trolloc, when he spoke to me, he said that someone was looking for him, and Lan's like, "A Trolloc spoke to you?" Like,
yes.
Like, what now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, been fighting them for my entire life. Not one of them has ever said a word to me.
No.
But there you go.
Then again, land wouldn't hang around for them to even open their mouths, I
No.
suppose. They maybe said, please, not me, I've got children.
My mother, she's sick.
While Moraine is channeling to heal Tam, Rand actually shivers and rubs his arms
Yes,
while
that's
Moraine's
correct.
channeling.
Oh, yes.
I think that's an early sign of him sensing a woman channeling near him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my last note was just that Winter Night made it impossible for the Trollocs to actually find the boys in the houses that they were targeting.
Yeah, a lot of luck coming these guys' way, eh?
Yeah, Winter
Severe
Night
in.
and Elspeth with her frying pan.
Yes, no one expects Elspeth.
Okay, so next chapter, Joseph, Tellings of the Wheel.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that the names of those last 2 chapters were deceiving. Out of the woods, not entirely. A place of safety. What? It's all destroyed.
There should have been question marks just at the end of every chapter there. Out of the woods.
Or just a shrug emoji next to it. Out of the woods?
Yeah. Well, it needs an update for the 2000s.
Yeah, instead of the Wheel of Time symbols,
It's just
emojis. Yeah.
Indeed. So yeah, chapter 9. There it is, that one. So this is where, the previous chapter, Rand's just fallen asleep in the chair next to his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and he starts having dreams. Ooh, was there a bit of foreshadowing there? Have you, if you're having any bad dreams, Rand. Yeah, so he dreams that he's stuck in the blight, which I figure is the blight because this land is dead and desolate, and even the dry soil is crunching under his feet. It's so cold.
I thought it was the Blasted Lands. Is that a thing?
Yes, it is a thing. If you say so. No, it is. And anyway, so he's there. He's in the blight. He's in the blasted lands or whatever near Shile. And
it's a shitty place.
You don't want to be there. Anyway, so he hears a voice saying, "Serve me." And then when it was written, it's written in lowercase. So later on, we do know that when the Dark One speaks to you, it's all caps and it's in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think this is the Dark One speaking to him. I think this is again Moradin.
It's old Ishmael, everybody's favorite.
Up to his usual tricks, whispering things behind you. Then in this dream, he's running. He hears this like "serve me," and he's freaking out, and he's running and running and running. Feels like he's being chased all the time, and as dreams do, he's all of a sudden in a different place. Now, then in the next part of the dream, he's near Tar Valon, where he feels that, okay, now I'm feeling a bit safer. This is feeling good, but he's still got that being chased feeling. Eventually, he makes it into the city. Like, he kind of keeps on jumping forward, and it's dream time. And he's received by the people in the city as like a king, as a conqueror, as a savior, perhaps a messiah figure. Everybody's as soon as he starts losing focus, the people start freaking out around him. And as soon as he starts walking towards the White Tower again, everybody's happy and calm, like, oh, great, he's coming, it's good, come this way. And as he gets into the White Tower, he's greeted by a Madrol who has been waiting for him. And that's when he wakes up and back in the inn. Yes, time to talk to Moraine, I think. Getting some wards on those dreams, perhaps. So, yeah. He wakes up in the inn, and he has something to eat, and his dad Tam is up. No, he's awake. So he starts talking to him and telling him about the night before, and Tam's just like, wow, I thought I dreamt that. What did I miss? My word. So it tells him about the night before. And again, his dad hears about Aes Sedai in the town, and he also warns him again, like, just be careful with these half-truths that these Aes Sedai tell you. So he also has some experience with Aes Sedai.
He knows to ask what Moraine's exact words were.
Exactly. Yeah, like, what word by word, please, because
what did she say?
They can't lie, but they do find creative ways around it. So we learn a bit more about the bond as well. That Lan can gain strength from Moraine, and Moraine from him. That's why they don't need as much rest as the rest of them. And the usual suspects turn up. The Congers and old Sen to try and chase Moraine out of town, because now obviously the locals, well, some of the stupider locals are pissed off that everything happened. The village is destroyed, and they blame the Aes Sedai for because she rocked up, and then all of a sudden there's Trollocs. They've never seen or heard of an Aes Sedai or Trollocs until last night, and they both showed up on the same day. You can see how they would draw a connection, but obviously they're wrong. So they come with torches. They're going to burn her out like a witch. Burn her.
You know what comes to mind right there? That is like Monty Python skit. Burn her.
Billy Congo was turned into a newt.
He got better, so it's all right. But no, in the end they don't burn her because obviously she doesn't weigh as much as a duck, and she tells them the story about Manetheren. Or how do you pronounce it, Moritz?
In my head it's always been Manetheren, but
Manetheren
that is by no means the gold standard by which we should measure these things.
Yeah, look, if you want to comment on our website and it's about pronunciation, just don't. Don't worry about it. You just pronounce it your way, we'll do it ours. That's the greatness of reading.
Send us a voice recording.
send us a voice WhatsApp. I love those. So and then she's like disgusted by them, by these people who are so petty, and is like, do you not know the heritage that you guys come from, about Manetheren and the Red Eagle and all of these things that we know later on Matt really embodies and brings back to life in a big way. So this is the first time we hear about it, and she also tells them that story of the battle and how their country was destroyed and their people killed during the Trolloc Wars, and how the armies of Manetheren were out fighting far, far away from home, and then their home got attacked, and as soon as they defeated their enemy in victory, they turned around and started marching back. No rest, didn't stop day or night to go and save their homeland. And when they got back, this is an incredible story. I want to be able to read it on this podcast, but I don't know if that's going to be any copyright infringement or whatever, or take up too much time. But that story, chapter 9, people, go and read it. You don't stop. Pause this podcast right now. Go read that story. They're kind of like the Spartans of Randland. I got the feeling like they are
totally
unstoppable. And in the end, the end of that story is that even though they expect support, they hold out. They have to hold out for 3 days against this horde of Trollocs. And after they're waiting for reinforcements from their allies, which never comes. After 10 days, they're still fighting and still going. But the queen eventually feels that her king, the husband, perishes in battle, and so she freaks out and draws on the one power and sends lightning and kills all the Trollocs, which makes me think, why didn't she just do that in the beginning from the offset?
It took so much power that it burnt her out and killed her. Like, I don't think it's an opt-in sort of thing.
No, I get that.
It's out of desperation.
But she's a channeler and she can't help out in the battle at any point. Anyway.
Oh right, yeah.
Could have just popped in, healed some people maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so she wasn't there. She only killed everyone in the end. But thanks for that, I suppose. Better late than never. And then all the while that Moiraine is telling the story, she's got that staff of hers with the very intricate carvings on it. Mm-hmm. Foreshadowing again. And just these flames are shooting out each end of it as she's holding it in front of her. And it's kind of like reminded me, and I will make many references to the Lord of the Rings again, how many similarities I'm finding now after recently,
of course,
under lockdown, rewatching the trilogy of films, the extended editions. I'm finding so many similarities now. So anyway, the scene where Galadriel refuses the One Ring from Frodo, and she's a queen as dark as no. That kind of reminded me, that powerful image of Moiraine standing there with the fire shooting out of that staff and telling them the story. And then when the story ends, the fire goes out and everybody comes up and apologizes to her. Like, oh man, I'm so sorry. You can stay, it's fine. Except for, of course, the usual suspects, the Congers and the...
Oh, Christ.
A lot of them just disappeared during her speech, during her story. They just make a move. And then that's how it ends. Like they apologize and disperse. And then all this while, like, we're watching it from Rand's perspective. He's in the inn with Lan. And they're just watching through the creak, the crack in the door, watching this whole scenario unfold. And that's when their journey begins. As soon as that story ends, everybody disperses and Lan's like, all right, let's hit the road. It's time to go. And then that's where we left off. Did anything in that chapter stick out for you guys that I missed?
No, I think you've done a pretty good job there, Joe.
I was just super stoked that Rand actually had a chance to speak to Tam. I hadn't remembered that they did actually get to say goodbye. I always had this sense that from reading the book a long time ago, and because of how, the story just sprawls out from this point forward, right? Like, I mean, Rand goes on an incredible journey, and Tam is only sort of like a cameo towards the end again. But because of that separation early in the book, and them being apart for the majority of the books, I always had this image of Rand being torn away from his dad without being able to say goodbye. But he did. Moraine says in the beginning that after the healing she's done, it'll take Tam. He's unlikely to wake up before you leave, but it's that night. Like Tam wakes up, he's made of sterner stuff than most. And it was just cool to know that he's also just completely on board with Rand leaving. He doesn't want it, but he absolutely sees the need for it. He's like, well, just know that maybe I can still catch up with you on the road. Like, there's still the glimmer of hope that, once he's healed up, he'll catch up with him.
Oh, he does in the end, I suppose. He does catch up.
He does eventually.
10 books later.
Yeah.
Moraine, I think, to put a hell of a lot into healing, which is obviously not a strong suit at that stage, because Rand is pretty stubborn. And I've got the feeling that if Tam didn't wake up, Rand wouldn't leave. Like, he slept next to his bed on the floor in front of the fire, on top of a sword hilt. That was his dedication to one, staying with his father, and two, being absolutely exhausted while dragging him an entire night on a litter through the Westwood. Now, we know, we've spoken about the Westwood. It is not a friendly place.
No.
So, and he's not even dragging them on the cobble road. He's dragging them through the bush.
That was rough.
So I think she probably saw that wasn't going to happen, and put so much into the healing to get him to hopefully be at that state. Because both Perrin and both Matt didn't have any goodbyes. They left a note.
Yes.
Or maybe that's where you get it from, Moritz. Somebody left without saying goodbye. Most of us.
Everyone else.
Egwene as well. I also, while reading the thing, I took a note saying Emond, which was the king of Manetherin.
Ah, yes.
And Aemond's field becomes Emond's field.
Yes.
So, I mean, their town is where those battles took place and where Emond fell.
Yeah.
Right? So they are like at the epicenter of the Manetherin bloodline, at least geographically. I don't know how they account for like actual genetics stemming from Manetherin locked to a geographical area, but there you have it.
Don't think about it too hard.
And I also liked that when you read the story the first time, she talks about Manetherin and saying how beautiful it was that even the Ogier came to wonder at it. And when you read that, it's like, okay, cool. So something that I don't know anything about came to stare at this beautiful city. But you know that the Ogier were these master craftsmen and masons and builders. They built Tar Valon.
Yeah.
Yes.
They built Whitebridge.
And the ways.
I mean, Tar Valon. Yeah, and I mean, Tar Valon is always described as like this unthinkably beautiful city with like, the buildings are all like these elaborate shapes and non-geometric shapes and all kinds of stuff. And
I always get the what sticks out for me most about the design of that city are the bridges that are like fine, hair thin. Like, there's no way they could support anybody's weight or the rush of the river underneath them, but that always sticks out to me.
But they do, and I also noted that in that Battle of Manetherin, the banner for the Trolloc army was marked with Baalzamon's name, which we know is Ishmael. So again, Ishmael calling the shots as first among the Forsaken.
He is a busy boy. Niblis. How do you pronounce that? Niblis?
Niebla.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
For sure.
Okay, yeah. So next up, chapter 10, leave taking.
Yeah, leave taking indeed. Rand, Matt, and Lan heads out to the stables to find already that Perrin is waiting for them in the stables. Perrin hops up and Land says to him, sheepherder, was it blacksmith? Did you check the stables like I instructed you to? Like, yep, job's done. And as they get ready to get going, obviously Matt, for the first time, notices Rand's sword, and Matt, being Matt, he cracks a joke about it, and then notices Perrin's rolling with a big axe.
Yep.
Cracks another joke at that. What is he saying? Oh yes, wool merchant's god indeed.
Yeah. I like
And
that fact that Matt is already trying to like ease the tension with jokes.
yeah,
Always.
always trying to. And he's saying no, he'll stay humble with the humble man's weapon, with his longbow that he has with him. But Lan quickly jumps in and reminds them that anything can be a weapon to a man or a woman. He has the nerve to make it so. So it's quite interesting there that he's already starting the mentoring process even before the time. And that's when Moraine then walks in, and they were going to get going. And Egwene decides to hop in and say, "Not without me." So, surprise, surprise.
She pulls her Samwise Gamgee moment.
Yep, absolutely. And this obviously brings in yet a fantastic character, because she needs a noble steed. And
Hey.
what noble steed other than Bella, who is in the village and ready to run. So they then, but before Bella joins the party, of course, they decide, or Lan decides, he'll just take the Gleeman's horse and leave him adequate compensation for the loss of his horse. And then they're like, out on top in the hayloft jumps old Tom. He knew that was something coming down. He was ready to pack already. So Tom says, well, look, he's not going to be traveling this uncertain times on his own. He will happily go and make a few coin in Tar Valon, as Gleemans like to do. And
Lan not impressed by parents' barn searching skills.
not at all.
You had one job.
You had one job. Make sure there's no one in the barn. Make sure the horses are ready. So
and now everyone's pulling in.
Everyone's pulling in. So two more adventurers join in. They need another horse, and that's where Rand says, well, what about Bella? Bella's here. She's good. She is not as fast, but he's ridden her, never with a saddle, always bareback. But she's going to get them done. So Rand actually saddles her on Moraine's instruction. Moraine on 2 occasions saying that this is now part of the pattern, with the Green coming and with Tom. And very quickly tells Lan, and Lan actually on the second occasion with Tom, it's like, oh, is this also part of the pattern? And almost half sarcastically, like,
Yeah.
all right, but we're going to take the whole town with us now. Then, Rand saddles Bella. He gets a Green's bedroll and belongings, ties it to the back of the saddle, and she hops on. She doesn't have a riding skirt on, so obviously her legs are exposed with the socks and her soft leather shoes. And Rand sort of helps her into the saddle and says he knows he can't sort of convince her not to stay, but he will take care of her. And to which she replies quite smirkingly, like, oh, yeah, I'll protect you as well. So they get on, they get riding. Lan sort of peer out before they leave the stables, and Perrin makes a comment about wolves, to which Lan quickly says, if only we had wolves, because this was something now that I'd sort of reading further was quite drawn back in how quickly wolves and Perrin are now all of a sudden pulled together in the same sort of context. And saying now, and telling that wolves deeply despise Trollocs, and if we hurt them, then we for sure know there's no Trollocs.
Yeah.
So a bit of land knowledge dropping there. They then slowly, not running out of the village, moving slowly, had to duck, go through the river because one of the patrols came past. That has been set up, obviously, to make sure that it's safe. Lan making the comment that 2 Trollocs will take the whole patrol out, any which way, smirking at them.
Have them for breakfast or
Have
something.
them for breakfast, yes. And they then travel parallel to the North Road along to Tarrant Ferry. Rand then at some stage decide to stop and look back and sort of get that last mental image of home, and then kind of also laughing at himself, like, you're not even on the horse for 10 minutes and you're already missing home, and what a big adventurer you are. And then looks up at the dark sky and thinking, like, is there any other sky that's as clear as the sky in Emmonsfield? And looking at the moon, and all of a sudden bat flies across the moon face.
Quote unquote
bat. And he then sort of like, but no, for a bat to be that big against the moon, it would have to be at arm's length away from me. And this is also not the flapping of a bat, it's sort of slow and methodical, like a bird of prey.
Mm.
And sort of caught in a moment to which he got ripped out by Land, that ran back with a horse and saying, "Come on, you bloody woolhead, let's got to get moving on here." And he tells Land about, no, it's just what I saw. And he's like, Drakar is out. So everyone's like, what is this? And Tom enlightens them to the breaking of the world. There was a lot worse than Trollocs that were made. And one of that being Drakar, half man, half flying fox, with big eyes and a pale skin. Often a reference to the humanoid dark spawn having pale skins, because they died. They were killed in the making of these beings. So it's obviously half dead human, half live animal.
It's all kinds of fucked up.
A flying bat zombie. That sounds terrific.
Well, yeah, I would go with Flying Foxman.
Just doesn't quite have the same ring as Drakar. And I love your pronunciation. You really sell it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You put some real Dothraki on that one.
Put the Dothraki on that. And yeah, that is when Lan obviously understands the gravity of the situation, that they can no longer just prod along parallel to the North Road and take their time to get to Tarrant Ferry. It's now run for your lives. Like, he's going to spot us. There's no doubt about it. We got to move.
What do you mean with parallel to the North Road? Do you think they're traveling off the road?
Yeah, they were off the road. And
in the beginning.
In the beginning. And they then get back onto the road, and that's when they open up the horses. Yeah. And it's that big
full
run.
Throttle.
Full throttle, let's go. And that's where the chapter ends. So it's also not a lot to sink your teeth in there, but obviously getting some more of the dark animals, creatures, shadow spawn.
Yeah, there's been a lot of them mentioned already. Like, I mean, we already know about Trollocs, Fades, Drakar. Matt mentions Hellhounds in the beginning, like thinking it's probably something out of a story, but you'd find out later that the Hellhounds are quite real. No. It's quite a cast of villains.
In chapter 10, I mean, it's only the first 10 chapters.
Mm-hmm. They haven't left the village. It's day 2.
Yes.
It's day 2.
Day 2, yeah.
Thanks, Billy. I think you're now the official timekeeper. You're going to keep track of the days that have passed as the story goes on.
Yeah, maybe I should just start making notes in my book, day 1, day 2, and take it from there.
That's not obsessive at all. You'll be fine.
I noticed also when they're gathering in the barn and they're getting ready to go, they've actually got like nervous smiles. There's a sense of excitement. It's not just terror. It's like, okay, shit, we're going on a real fucking adventure here. Like this is really happening. Which was kind of infectious. Like I also started feeling like, oh yes, man, this is huge. These guys are going on quite a journey.
I mean, that's why Egwene is there. She doesn't care about their mission or what they need to do. She just wants to get the hell out of Dodge. Like, I want to go adventuring, guys. Let's go.
Totally. And I mean, that is brave, right? I mean, she's a small town girl, and you start seeing right in the beginning how sharp she is. She figured out what was happening by herself. She's the only other person in the town that figured it out.
Yeah.
And she's packed food and she's ready to go. She's like, all right, come, let's go.
Yeah, she noticed that Lan was buying up horses.
Yeah, she's a real detective, eh?
And she sort of kept an eye, and she saw Matt skulking around, trying to evade attention, like not very well at all.
It didn't look like he had a badger in his pocket, so
no. And Perrin trying to hide a massive axe under his cloak. It's like, you guys are up to something. Come on.
Not very subtle, eh?
I remember when I was reading the books originally, I found Egwene a little annoying at times. Like, come on, man, the story's not about you. You know, sort of stop inserting yourself in this grand adventure. And then towards the end, like if you know how her storyline goes, which we obviously do, and listeners presumably do as well, she becomes, I don't want to say my favorite character because there are too many to choose from, and picking any one character would be lying to yourself. But I mean, her story actually becomes so good. She becomes such a major player, and her ending as well, which I, for Billy's sake, won't spoil right now because I don't need to, but it's just unbelievable. Her arc is fucking awesome. And I almost feel guilty, and I want to apologize to her for my 16-year-old self being annoyed by her, because she is amazing.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's another thing that stood out in this chapter, is when Egwene pops up out of surprise. Lan grabs his sword and pulls it halfway out the sheath, sees her, and puts it back. But then when Tom jumps down from the hayloft, he pulls it
Swords
out completely. And even when he realizes it's Tom, he never packs it away. He's like, do not trust this guy. Doesn't trust him in the previous chapters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Not a fan
now
of
that
Tom.
I know that Moraine and Tom ends up together,
Mm.
and Moraine is bonded to Lan. Lan would feel if there was anything that she feels, and they had that little cheeky exchange the day before already. So
It's true.
And who was it, Rand, that thought, okay, she nodded, he's part of the pattern. And then he sheathed his sword. And then he's thought, like, okay, well, I wonder what would have happened if she didn't nod. Like,
Yeah.
would Lan have actually ended him right there and then and gotten a horse and left?
Well,
Most
but
probably.
Tom is always skittish around Moraine, right? And like you said, I didn't even consider the fact that, being a warder, he would sense anything that Moraine feels for him. So if she did have any kind of, like, even in the beginning stages, have any kind of romantic fluttering, if Lan picked up on that, he could easily make the decision that this is going to cloud your judgment. This person needs to be removed from the equation, because he's just cold, hard sword machine. So yeah, I mean, he probably was quite ready to eliminate Tom from the situation, because was it Lan that also said that he didn't see Tom during the battle? Like, he just doesn't trust him at all, because he obviously picks up on Tom's mistrust of Moraine as well.
Yeah, and it was back on that we said that he was obviously had his cloak, was Gleeman's cloak, burned. When Rand came across him pulling Tam, he was busy sitting with fine scissors cutting off the burn clippings off his cloak as well.
Yeah. And also, before they go, Lan says to Moraine, there's no reason to bring this girl. And Moraine says to him, there is a reason. So Moraine already knows or suspects that Egwene can channel.
Yeah, but they can sense that, can't they? I mean, isn't that...
I can't remember how they do that, but I mean, because Egwene hasn't channeled, but I think she can sense something in her, like you said.
The spark, I think they call it, or something.
The spark.
Yes. Okay, so chapter 11 then. The road to Tarrant Ferry. Okay, so they're all racing up the North Road towards Watch Hill and Tarrant Ferry. Rand is on Cloud, a horse that is predominantly used for racing. Like, was he Matt's dad's prize horse? He was someone in the
John
Thane
horse, and he used to race the
merchants,
the
and
merchant horses, the whole merchant guards horses when they came into town.
So Cloud is like straining to catch up with Mandarb, which is like, okay, buddy, you try, you keep trying. And Rand looks over at Bella, and he's worried about Egwene, obviously, and he is basically willing Bella to run. And it says, I wrote down the quote, his skin prickled and his bones felt as if they were freezing, ready to split open, and Bella ran. Now, I remember Moraine making a comment somewhere along the line, and I'm sure we'll be able to correct ourselves within a couple chapters, but it's either Rand or Egwene channeling, restoring Bella as they're going.
I've got the answer on that one for you. Because they get to their first rest point after Tarrant Ferry.
Yes.
And Moraine then goes to all the horses to just heal them so that they can run the next. Is it in this chapter?
That's in this chapter, yes.
But Bella didn't need any healing.
Yes. But that's because either, I can't remember which one it was.
No, it was Rand. It was Rand.
Channeling.
Yeah, that's what I got as well.
She thought it was maybe Egwene that did it, but it comes out, and it comes out in this book that it's Rand.
Okay. Yeah. So that's cool. I mean, just the wording, his skin prickled and his bones felt as if they were freezing, ready to split open. I mean, that's all imagery that they use to describe men channeling. So anyway, they get to Watch Hill in what, Rand can't believe is like, they did it so quickly. And the boys immediately start daydreaming about like what mutton pies they're going to have. And, they're not as good as Mistress Elvira's, but okay, we'll have some, like even Perrin joining in. and they don't notice Moraine going around to all the horses, and that's when she's busy healing the horses, and she says, Rand, you were right about Bella. She seems to be the least fatigued of all. And I think, like we said, that's because Rand was channeling to keep her going. And that's when, before they get into the town, the Drakkar sort of like swoops down on them, and Cloud rears up, and Rand is sort of dragged along by the reins. He's not on the horse anymore. And Moraine or Lan says that, okay, well, if the Drakkar is doing that, then he's already told the half-man where we are, and he's tracking us now on behalf of the Fade. And when everyone's sort of like ready to bolt, Rand finds himself not on the horse, but standing there, and he's drawn his sword and he's scanning the sky. So his instincts are all ready to fight, which is great. And then when they run, like Lan gives up on trying to get them to run in single file. They just all sort of clump together. And it seems like it's this chaotic flight from Watch Hill further up the North Road. And when Rand looks over at Egwene, she is smiling.
Yeah.
Egwene is actually smiling, and she's got like a gleaming in her eyes that Rand says is not from the moon. So she is living her high adventure already and is not scared, which is fucking amazing, because the boys, Rand seems terrified. So Moraine, I said, Rand's jaw is hanging open until he swallows a bite me. And he's looking at Egwene being all like smiling and racing her horse with a gleam in her eye, and he's swallowing probably something like a midge or a michi or something.
Well, let's be honest. He has always had a fancy for her, and he's always kept an eye on her. And
thought.
And that moment, he just saw a new picture of this girl that he really likes.
Yeah, and I also like.
He's just realizing, Rand's realizing this chick is out of my league. Like,
yeah,
I don't know about this anymore.
No. So Moraine conjures up a thick wall of fog, and they're running through the fog, and it sort of dulls the sound of everything. And before they know it, they are in this town that Rand has never seen before. The houses are all built up on these foundations that sort of have to cope with the flooding river. And they ride up to a house seemingly at random, and Lan like jumps off the horse and runs up the steps and starts banging on the door. And Rand thinks, well, he's supposed to be keeping us quiet. I thought he wanted us to be quiet. And eventually the door opens, and it turns out it's the home of the guy that runs the ferry across the river. And Lan basically bullies him with gold and a menacing look into running the ferry at night, which he doesn't usually do. And with that, the crew head off to the ferry, where the ferryman said he will meet them with his crew. And that is the end of that chapter. Now, it seems like a bit of an anticlimax until you think about the fact that none of them have been this far. This is the very edge of the two rivers. It's the northern of the two rivers, and they're preparing to leave their homeland, basically. They've always thought of the two rivers almost as a country, with their small town perceptions of the world. So they are right now on the precipice of the real adventure.
For sure. I also found another instance where I think is of Rand channeling again in that chapter when he soothes Cloud. Remember when the Drakkar attacks and all the horses start going crazy except Mandob, because there's a mention of that, like Mandob is standing dead still next to this entire time. Well trained. But yeah, like the horse is going crazy. He's getting dragged along by the reins, and he focuses. He tries to calm him down again, and the horse calms down. So I don't know if that was him.
Yeah, maybe
channeling. I don't know if there's no specific mention of tingling skins and bones breaking and things, but it could be another instance.
Totally. Not an awful lot to read into that one.
Fear and running.
Yeah, just a long, hard ride.
I mean, isn't this? And you can edit this out if I'm going too much of this Lord of the Rings crap. But I mean, the hobbits are running towards the ferry and being chased by the Nazgul. Yeah. And I mean, Moraine is Gandalf. Lan is Aragorn. These Rand, Matt, and Perrin are the hobbits. I mean, they stop and they immediately start thinking, "Oh, second breakfast. Let's have a pie. Lamb pie." Lan's like, "What? No, man. We've already eaten. Yes. We dry. Let's go.
And the similarities are undeniable.
Oh yeah, like I'm not saying it's any plagiarizing or anything, but of course he's going to have Jordan's going to have influences from other writers and things.
Look, we have the luxury of knowing where this is all going and how. But I
Yeah,
mean, like even like Shyle Ghul, like this mountain in
yeah,
the Blasted Lands. Like okay,
yeah,
Mordor
yeah.
mountains. Got it.
Exactly.
It's all the same.
The Twin Towers, Shyle Ghul and Dragon Mount, as Minas Tirith and Minas
Yeah.
Morgul. I mean, it's
Yes.
like, they're both these giant mountains surrounded by nothing else. One good, one bad, so to
Yeah.
speak. So
Yeah.
yeah, lots of cool similarities there. I like it. I'm not
Yeah,
complaining about it.
I love it.
Mm.
It's even down to the Drakkar and what was it called? The fell beast that the Nazgul flew on.
Oh, yeah.
Also a dragon in the sky, but obviously a hell of a lot bigger.
Mm. Mm.
Indeed.
Okay, so in all these sections that we've covered today, Villy, what was your favorite moment?
That Bella joined the journey. One final.
This is the Bella cast after all.
Yes.
No, look, it's again the suspense keep building. There, you don't get that reprieve. You get, oh, okay, Tam is in a cot. He's lying. He's been healed, and there's food for Rand, and he's lying in front of a fire. And as that happens, dream of the devil, literally.
Yeah.
It's that you don't get a reprieve of saying like, okay, well, we are out of the woods. It's literally you never out of the woods.
No,
No, for
not
sure.
until Tarmon is over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
14 books to go. And even
Yes.
then, yeah.
How about you, Joe?
The story that Moraine tells, Manetheren.
Yeah.
I'm going to pronounce it like that from now on. Manetheren. Just rolls off the tongue. So yes, that story with holding the whole town captive, and I mean, I was reading that just in awe. I was one of those people, one of those townsfolk, listening to
Yes.
that story, just raptured, loved
Yeah.
it.
It's exactly like you said, like the Spartans, like it's this total underdog story, like the march that they did from their original battle victory back to Manetheren was deemed impossible, and then when the armies of Baalzamon arrived at Manetheren, they were met by the the Red Eagle and the men and
Yeah.
women of Manetheren.
They're already there.
Yes.
Like what took you guys?
And then they fight for like 10 plus days,
Yeah.
like just holding out against all odds.
That's also the second point where they are very specific about the men and the women of Manetheren. And Lan saying anything in the hands of a man and a woman can be a weapon if he or she wills it.
Now, later in the story, Emond's Field is under siege from a massive Trolloc army.
That's right.
And they are basically recreating this exact scenario with the people from Emond's Field and the Two Rivers. I mean, they bring everyone into Emond's Field from Devon Ride and Tarrant Ferry and Watch Hill and all those places. And they make a big deal at that point of also including the women and children. Like everybody contributes to the fight. They're grabbing pitchforks. They're making bows for everyone. Like everybody contributes. And it's like this really cool mirror image of exactly what happened in Manetheren happens again on Emond's Field again.
Yeah. I remember that now that you're mentioning it.
The wheel turned 360.
Ah, indeed, Billy. Well done. The wheel turns.
The
But
wheel
from that,
turns.
I remember that as well. Like now that you mention it about the boys, the older boys are on the roofs with longbows, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much going to happen still, man. Wow.
It's
I don't even
exciting,
remember half of it.
I know.
The beautiful thing is that what I wanted to do all along is to just plot these timelines and how the story starts splitting, because you follow one story and then you roll back again.
I hope you have lots of paper.
I've got many books to write in.
Dude, somebody else has already done this. You don't need to do it again. That website where
That's
I got the number of words, like 4.4 million words in this series, also tells us something like 3,800 characters in this series.
Jesus.
So don't like you're going to go down a road you're going to be very sorry about.
Just a quick one on obviously now that we're reading so much into the story and the world, and now obviously the show that's being casted. What is your thoughts on if any of you saw the little video clip of the first reading of the episode 1's scripts?
to me, what I got out of that was that I think the first episode ends in Tarrant Ferry.
That's exactly where I was going.
I have not seen that. Link it for me, please.
It's WOT, so what on Prime.
Oh, yeah.
On Instagram, I follow them. And one of them is a video clip of that. It's just snippets of the first table reading.
All right. No, I follow them as well. That's where I got those.
So they show in the clip, they show the end of the table read, and it is the last couple of lines are from this section.
That's right. That's where we ended today.
Yeah. All right.
So anyway, my favorite part of the story in this little section was going to be the Manetherin story as well, and not up until the point that you picked it, Joe, but
sure.
earlier today. My new favorite, I thought I would pick a slightly lower profile one, is when all the people are gathered outside the inn to try and chase off Landon Moraine. When Bran and Master Lewin show up. Master Lewin at one point is like sort of also again playing coy, like he's like, "Oh, what are you guys doing here?" And he just stretches his arms above his head and he cracks all his knuckles, and everyone is like, "Oh shit!" And everyone sort of takes a step back and they pipe right down. And I was like, all he had to do was stretch his arms and crack his finger knuckles, and everyone just got right back into line.
Yes, yeah, I remember that. Okay, that's a good scene. That's a good favorite part. I remember that as well. Yeah. That is a note.
It's going to be hard to translate to TV, but I hope they sneak that in there.
I think that's a very visual scene. That might be good to put in the TV show. I mean, do we have a casting for him already?
It's got to be Dave Bautista, right?
Yeah, or The Rock.
Yes. I don't think that they do, Joe.
Well, The Rock is unavailable.
Yes, so that wrote Master
He's
Lewin
a very
out
busy
of the
man.
story.
Yeah. No, don't do that.
There is a one role unknown person, Daryl McCormack.
Is he gigantic?
Let's have a quick.
Well, I've gone over those casting sheets and I didn't see anyone that jumped out.
No.
There's certainly no one named and no one cast that looks like, okay, that's going to be the big blacksmith.
So maybe that's still coming. But I mean, as this weekly announcement of new castings that has been done throughout, so it's ongoing.
Yes, but also production has begun and they've done a table read of the first episode. So any new casting is unlikely to be for someone in the first episode. Or do you think they're just drip feeding the casting?
I think they're drip feeding it, keeping it alive and coming through, sort of.
Okay.
That's good social media management.
Because the last two people that was casted was two villagers in Emonsfield as well. And that came after the two White Cloaks that was announced. And they come in the second episode. So very potentially, I think they're just drip feeding it. So maybe there's some big names in there. Some cameo appearances.
The more star power they can throw at this thing, the better.
Well, if we go back to that first photo of all the Game of Thrones. If you look at that first photo of all the Game of Thrones actors standing together, no one knew who they were. And everyone's like, who are these nobodies that's going to come and do this now? Come on. And then now we all love them so much until season 6.
True. Okay, so in next week's episode, we will be covering chapters 12 through 17. So we'll start with Across the Tarrant, and we'll continue to the end of Watchers and Hunters, which then officially takes us further than what I have read of book 1 recently. So I am psyched.
Sweet. Yeah, me too. I finished reading chapter 11 2 hours ago for the first time.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I'm keeping up just with what we... Because if I go too deep into it, you may never find me again. I'll be lost.
Yeah, I have too much time on my hands and I couldn't let go of the handbrake, so I'm sitting with chapter 25 already.
All right. Of book 3.
Villy, I think, is racing the spoiler clock because it's only a matter of time.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, Villy. No, you're immune. You can go ahead. You should get to book 14 soon.
But the problem is I have to read the books like 3 times now for the podcast because I read ahead and then I got to come back and read again. Good fun.
You got to read again and make notes. Yeah.
All right, boys. Thanks for the contributions and happy reading. And we will reconvene to continue on our quest.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
See you later.
Cheers, everyone.